What if I told you that Pakistan could be the key to one of the biggest shifts in global power since the Cold War? A new scramble is underway, and it's not for oil or land or even data. It's for minerals. The metals buried in the ground right here in Pakistan are now central to a high-stakes geopolitical game, one that involves the United States and China. Trump's been on a global mineral deal spree, making billion-dollar agreements with countries Saudi Arabia, Australia, Cambodia, and yes, Pakistan. So why this obsession? What's he trying to achieve? And why does Pakistan suddenly matter so much? Now, we've seen this story before. Centuries ago, it was gold, then oil. Now it's critical minerals, lithium, cobalt, nickel, copper, and a weirdly poetic set of metals called rare earths. They power everything. Your phone's vibration, your motor, your car's battery, your country's missile guidance system. These minerals are the lifeblood of clean energy and high technology. The problem is that one country dominates almost all of them, and that's China. China dominates 60% of mining and 90% of refining. By the way, if you ever wondered whether yttrium is a real element or just an elf from the Lord of the Rings, you're not alone. The Guardian literally made a quiz called Critical Minerals or Tolkien Invention, and I'm embarrassed to say I scored only 5 out of 10. But names aside, these aren't just fantasy. They're the real magic behind modern life, and whoever controls them controls the world's future. In 2025, Trump launched what could only be described as a world tour for rocks. He's calling it minerals diplomacy, but it's really a race to catch up with China. Here's the timeline. On May 13th, he signed a $600 billion investment pact with Saudi Arabia. Then on September 8th, 2025, the first ever Pakistan-US critical minerals partnership was signed. Then in October of the same year, he struck a deal with Cambodia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand, and Japan. That means in 5 months, he signed 8 deals. The US pledged billions for copper smelters and fertilizer plants at home, while partners like Australia and Japan committed to processing pipelines abroad. It's part diplomacy, part business, and part chess match with Beijing. Trump calls it energy security. Economists call it supply chain nationalism, and critics, they just call it Trump being Trump. So why does the US suddenly care so much? There are 3 overlapping pushes. The first is the energy transition. EVs, wind, solar, batteries all need huge volumes of metals. Second is geopolitics, trade tensions with China and concerns about resilience. The third is economics. A year of shocks, sanctions, and export controls showed how brittle global supply is. For decades, the US offshored its mining and refining. It was messy, expensive, and politically unpopular. But now the world is realizing that clean energy still runs on dirty extraction. Between 2020 and 2023, 70% of US mineral imports came from China. And when China started limiting exports, America found itself exposed. So Trump didn't suddenly fall in love with geology. This is about timing, politics, and power. A messy news cycle means he needs a clean, visual win, something patriotic and job-filled, and headline-friendly as well. Minerals deliver that. But there is also strategy. Prices for lithium, nickel, and rare earths have surged, and China now controls almost all refining. When Beijing restricted exports last year, the US factories literally ran short on parts. The Pentagon called it a national security risk. Trump calls it an opportunity. His plan is to build supply chains with allies and not adversaries. So why does Trump care right now? That's because it's the rare issue that checks every box. Political theater, economic strategy, and geopolitical muscle, all hidden inside a pile of rocks. And Trump's probably also worried because China, over the years, has step by step built the most powerful supply chain weapon on Earth. Here's how they seized control over the minerals. On October 1st, 2024, China imposed new documentation rules that exporters must disclose every foreign buyer and end use. The takeaway being, Beijing now knows who needs what and when. Then on December 3rd, 2024, they stopped exports of gallium, germanium, tungsten, and antimony to the US. This was a direct strike on semiconductors and defense supply chains. Then on April 4th, 2025, they added 7 rare earths and magnets to export control list. As a result, car factories from Detroit to Tokyo halted production. Finally, on October 9th, 2025, China banned tech transfers, halted export of rare earth processing equipment, and expanded license rules. Even magnets made outside China are now not able to move across borders if they contain Chinese material. That's right. If your magnet has even 0.1% of Chinese rare earths, Beijing wants to sign off. And China makes 90% of the world's rare earth magnets. That's used in everything from missiles to Teslas. One factory near Shanghai makes all of the ultra-pure dysprosium on Earth, which basically means nothing gets anywhere. And that's an alarm bell for the whole world. But now that the world is catching up with minerals, let's talk about how mining actually works, because it isn't just about digging holes and making profits. It's a slow, risky marathon. First comes exploration, mapping and drilling. 9 out of 10 sites usually fail. Then feasibility and permitting. This means studies, community hearings, financing. It can take years. Then construction. There are massive costs for power, roads, and plants. Then operation and processing, crushing, refining, and shipping. And keep in mind, profits fluctuate. Rare earths are 17 elements used everywhere: magnets, EV motors, jets, satellites, even MRIs. Critical minerals is a broader label. There are dozens of elements a country deems essential for security and green transition. They're often not rare in the crust, but are hard and expensive to extract and refine. Enter Pakistan. Pakistan officially entered the minerals race on September 8, 2025. And just weeks later, it sent its first shipment to the US, a $500 million deal involving copper, antimony, and rare earth elements like neodymium and praseodymium. Sheesh, that was hard. This was symbolic, a first step in a relationship that could reshape Pakistan's economy and the region's balance of power. The US picked Pakistan for 3 reasons. First, geology. Pakistan has $6 trillion in untapped resources: copper, gold, lithium, cobalt, rare earths. Second, geography. Pakistan has access to the Arabian Sea, which is the shortest route from Central Asia to the ocean. Third, geopolitics. It's China's partner through CPEC, and Washington loves a good counterweight. Ports like Pasni are just 70 kilometers from Gwadar port, so a US deal here isn't just economic, it's kind of symbolic too. Pakistan's national mining plan lists 92 known minerals, out of which 52 are already being mined across 5,000 active sites. But the sector contributes only 3% to the GDP. The issues: outdated tech, weak financing, and no national mineral data bank. Pakistan's mining story is one of huge potential and decades of missed opportunity. Since independence, the country has known that it sits on vast mineral wealth. Copper, gold, lithium, and rare earths spread from Balochistan's deserts to Gilgit-Baltistan's mountains. Yet, most of it has stayed underground. In the 1970s, nationalization drove away private investors. Through the 80s and 90s, weak infrastructure and red tape stalled exploration. Then came Reko Diq, once touted as one of the world's largest copper-gold deposits. But a long legal dispute froze the project for years. Today, mining contributes barely 3% to GDP, even though Pakistan's estimated resources top $6 trillion. Less than 5% of its mineral terrain has never been scientifically explored. That's why this new US partnership matters. It's a second chance to bring in technology, investment, and credibility. For the first time, Pakistan could move from exporting raw ore to processing and refining it at home. If it succeeds, this won't just revive a dormant sector, it could rewrite Pakistan's entire economic story. But here's the hard truth. 80% of Pakistan's minerals are in Balochistan, the country's most unstable region. Insurgents have attacked more than 50 mining projects since 2018. Power and water are scarce. Transporting ore from Sawat to Gwadar, 1,800 kilometers, costs $120 a ton. That's twice the global norm. And Pakistan has also got a lot of work to do on establishing industrial-scale facilities. And let's not forget that China is also Pakistan's closest ally. So when Pakistan made a deal with the US, everyone questioned. But what about China? Not to worry, because when the deal was signed, the Chinese spokesperson said, "We're looped into Pakistan's plans." Officially, China says it welcomes cooperation that benefits Pakistan's people. The US-Pakistan mineral deal doesn't exist in isolation. It's a regional earthquake. Afghanistan could export its lithium through Pakistani ports. India, a US ally, stays polite but uneasy. Iran's Chabahar port faces new competition from Pasni. And Gulf states, especially Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, see opportunity to co-invest, hedging between Washington and Beijing. Essentially, everyone's watching Pakistan's next move because this one partnership could redraw South Asia's resource map. While governments negotiate, even provinces are jumping in. Punjab's 2025 Mines and Minerals Bill introduces a licensing authority, a mining police force, and courts for disputes. It's bureaucratic, but it's progress. SFA Oxford estimates Pakistan's recoverable rare earth oxide at between 100,000 and 500,000 tons, enough to make it a Tier 2 player, behind giants like China and Australia. CSIS calls the US-Pakistan partnership commercially driven diplomacy. Chatham House warns that the impact will take years because supply chains move slower than politics. Experts predict three futures. First is the boom. Pakistan builds its refineries, cuts corruption, and becomes a hub. That means jobs, revenue, and stability. Second, the squeeze. Projects stall, infrastructure lags, investors hesitate. Or third, the backlash. Conflict returns, projects fail, and China swoops back in with rescue loans. Which one of these scenarios we fall into depends on whether Pakistan can turn geology into governance and politics into policy. But here's what we need to remember. This minerals race isn't just about economics. It's about climate, technology, and sovereignty. Every EV, every turbine, every missile, all depend on a handful of countries digging in the right place at the right time. As The Economist put it, minerals are the DNA of industrial power. Whoever controls them writes the next chapter of globalization. So here's the bottom line. Trump is betting billions to rebuild America's industrial independence, and Pakistan is standing on a literal gold mine, trying to dig its way to economic survival. The race for minerals will define who builds the future and who buys it. From the deserts of Balochistan to the factories of Detroit, this isn't just a resource story. It's the story of the world's next industrial revolution, and it starts quite literally underground.